Hello and welcome to this chat about the Freewing Air Team. We're going to have a look at the build tech, the design, and have a chat about how it actually feels on the water. But first, let's have a look at it in its natural environment. Now this is the successor to the Freewing Nitro that many of you, myself included, may have had experience of in the past. And that Freewing Nitro, especially the 4 meter, is the stuff of legend. I revered that wing and still do to this day. So 3 years I think it was, the development gap or the release date between that Freewing Nitro and this Freewing Air Team, and a lot has changed, not only in materials and knowledge of design, but also in the actual nature of the sport itself. So it was very interesting to get my hands on this. I've probably had about 6 months now, I think, getting my head around this thing, and pretty solid that I know exactly where it is and what it does. Probably the first thing to do is talk about the materials of these things. The same Ultra PE leading edge, which is what we had on the old Nitro. Now this PE stuff is just unbelievable. My instructions with the first wing was, look Mike, just try and kill it. I couldn't. 14 psi I put in it for 2 or 3 years, and although there was some spread creep around the stitching areas, it was fine. Never once had to repair it. The structural integrity of that Ultra P is just beyond belief. Also UV stability. That wing is still out there now, getting absolutely hammered. The canopy is a different story though. The canopy was the normal standard canopies, and you can imagine 4 or 5 years of use, the canopy was quite bagged. In the new Air Team, what you see is a new generation of canopy, which we saw first in this wing called, well, they call it Ultra X. And it's claimed to be 4 times more durable, but more crucially than that, it's covered, you can see on the surface of it, in a Ultra PE mesh. And then also it has a laminate over the top of it as well on the inside to protect it from UV. A little bit more expensive, certainly, a little bit heavier, but not that much. What it does mean is that the longevity of the wing, its durability, now matches the leading edge. There was a disparity in the old wing, no longer. This is now one of those products that's gonna last a really long time. Probably not a good idea for Freewing, because you're not going to need to change your wing for 2 or 3 years or longer. So yeah, the construction of it, they've had extra time, obviously 3 years dealing with strut engineering. You see this year they've got an angle strut to make the stance much more ergonomic. They've increased the durability of the leading edge seams so they can run more pressure. And this year, I mean, this is the 4 meter, which they're saying inflate to 14 psi. I think I read in the specs that the 3 meter, they're asking for 18 psi on the website, which is frankly more than you can put in with a normal kite pump. And the nature of these wings and the nature of this technology has got to a point where stiffness is just unbelievable compared to the wings that we had before. Probably stiffer than it needs to be for most people, but clearly in the design rationale of this style of wing, from what it was to what it is, I see that the aspect ratio has come down, the stiffness has gone up, the canopy tension is significantly tighter, and the whole thing lends itself more to a freestyle environment than it did a free ride and wave riding environment. Now, they're still very, very nice wing to wave ride with, which is what I predominantly do, and for free ride cruising, again, flat water, which again is what I do the most of. But clearly for freestyle, this thing is absolutely fantastic. Its stiffness means that when you load it hard, that power keeps coming. The tightness of the wing means that it's got a lot of control and minimal drag when you sheet it out. And its speed as well is huge. It's very, very efficient. Once you actually wind it up, the speeds on GPS significantly faster than anything else I've used, especially in medium winds when there's not a lot of spare power around. Once you get it going, the thing's cruising speed is really, really high, which is great for transitions and tacks and things like that. You can absolutely hoon around in no wind. It makes everything much, much easier in transition. The boom, the central strut here is angled, so you do get a different stance on the wing, which is much more comfortable. The junction between the strut and the front edge is much smoother. It's a much more secure and stiff anchoring between the two, which again aids the stiffness. The handles, it comes standard with hard handles with a foam covering. I believe they're a pressed carbon. These can be removed if you don't like hard handles, and you can put the soft handles back on again. Whether you like soft or hard, it's a personal issue. I didn't used to like hard handles, and since I started using these, I'm coming around to them more and more. All the leashes this year are individually sized to the wings, which is really, really nice. Other things to mention, the dihedral shape, so the curvature of the thing here has been re-optimized to be as compliant and neutral in flag out as possible, and it is. There's a standing joke that one of the brands in every contest, as soon as they flag out, their wings flick upside down. This is not that. You know, they're very, very compliant, just like the original Nitro was. I wouldn't say it was more compliant flag than the Nitro, but very, very close. But by setting the dihedral in this manner, it's given it far more speed and efficiency. When you're actually riding under power, it's noticeably better. So that is definitely worthy of note. The other side of it is the static power of them. Wings generally, I mean, those original free wings, especially the Nitro and the Freewing Pro, the first generation one, holy smoke, they were powerful. You didn't have to pump them at all. You just stood there and they hauled you up onto the foil. But they were unique in the industry, to be honest, and nobody else made foils, I don't think, as powerful as that. And the negative side of that was that when you flag them out, they have more drag. So Freewing have built a lot more tension into the canopy in these things than they had in those original wings. Now, the benefit is obviously far less drag, far more efficiency flagged. But the downside is that when you want to get them going, you need to give them a little bit more of a pump. And the pump, with them being flatter, is not the sort of mindless both arms sheeted in. It's more of a scoop action, so you make sure that the airflow stays going the right way on the foil. They are very, very stiff, and because they're ultra PE, they're extremely light for their size. So your pumping cadence can actually be quite high, but don't expect to just stand there and have them pull. The other really freaky thing about them is that if it's really light and you're a size smaller than you intended, if you let some pressure out and let it down from the 10s plus down to the 8s, they do become a little bit more powerful. I think they flex a little bit more and a bit more camber goes into the profile, and you do get a little bit more bottom end on them. And I've done this a couple of times and it does work. But when it does get windy and you have got you know, full power, you really make use of the stiffness, so it's recommended to put it in. The lower aspect ratio of them makes them much more agile in transition. Flicking them around from one side to the other, it's really, really noticeable how easy you can throw them about. And the things are so light, I mean, they just hold themselves in the air. It's just remarkable, really, how the sport has come on, really, and how the technology's just changed, and the material technologies with it. It's something that you know, is remarkable when you compare it to the existing materials we've been using in kiteboarding for so long. Out of all of the wings I've had to try so far, with the new Freewing V4s, the V3 before it, you know, the other myriad of stuff, this is the wing that I use the most at the moment. I've had some absolutely magic sessions on it. My friends also highly impressed by it too. It is the state of the art. They're absolutely phenomenal in terms of performance. I've had some beautiful wave riding sessions on it, and in fact the motivation for making this video was one session that I had on the 4.5, which you know, flagged out, elbow over the corner, just absolutely hooning up and down faces, carving, just absolutely beautiful. And you can carve one way up the wave and the thing's flagged. The lower drag just enables you to penetrate upwind on the face of a wave and cover a significant distance. And with the extra efficiency you get, the upwind angles that you can create are just unbelievable. I was all over the break. I had the best day's winging, I would say, I'd probably ever had. It was just absolutely magic, and I do credit a large proportion of that session to the performance of this wing. So that's why I'm stood here making this video now, really. I really do believe it's a fantastic product. We took some footage of the wing here with one of my team riders, Pete. And this day was, I think this is the 5-meter wing. He was out on a 65-litre phaser, I think, on a 1030 tracer, just cruising around in these waves. And it just goes to show how well balanced and efficient these wings are. Really high wind range on these things. When you stand up and sheet them out, they don't get squirrely at all. They just sit there and wait for the gust to go. It's a very, very pleasant and easy place to be. The other thing that I'd like to say about the canopy on these things is they're much more resistant to tearing. That Spectra Dyneema weave that goes through it means you can really point load them. I know foils these days are getting spikier and sharper than ever, but these things do help you stay away from the repair tapers as much as possible. And again, with them having a film on the other side, means that if you are caught out and you're on the hoof, you can repair small nicks with a piece of packing tape or that tear aid stuff. Just whop it on the other side and, you know, you're good to go for the rest of your trip. The individual Spectra lines means that if you do hole it, it's not going to progress past the next Dyneema line. So it's ripstop in the extreme, if you like. It's very hard to get through this Ultra PE lattice. The trailing edge of the wings this year, much tighter, obviously, because the canopy itself is tighter, but they're very heavily scalloped. I don't know if you can see it there on camera. And with the extra material around the edge, it does reduce flutter. Well, it completely removes flutter, if I'm honest. You've got to be on the face of a wave, overpowered, steaming upwind, flagged for it to flutter. Actually holding on to the boom, under power, the things just don't flutter anymore at all. So there you have it. That's my favorite wing of the moment. I've been using this most of the season. 3 years it's been in the making. Clinton and the boys at Freewing seem to clearly know their onions, for they've produced something that's technically very, very impressive as well. If only my standard of winging could do it justice. But it is state of the art, and if you're after something that really is cutting edge, well, you'd do very well with it indeed.